Greetings. I'm Bishop Dr. Ethan Ogletree, and this is our podcast, Good Flow. It comes out of John chapter 7, verse 38, where Jesus says, if you believe these words of mine, you would have flowing out of you rivers of water. The indication is it's ongoing, it's perpetual, that the Holy Spirit will get you through based on you believing in the word. We have a word for you in this season. I'm thankful and excited for my lovely wife, smart, strategic, planner. She's I say maybe expert in her field. She's at the top of her game when she does this. She is Dr. Pamela Ogletree, and I want to introduce you to her because we have her in this podcast today. What you think, Pam? How you doing?
I'm
Tell
doing
them who you are.
well. Thank you, Bishop, for having me as your guest on the podcast, Good Flow. And so I am here as a guest to be able to hopefully enhance your listening, viewing audience on some discussions I think that are relevant to what's going on in our culture today.
Thank you. I'm thankful that you gave me an opportunity to sit with you. You're the first guest
Yay.
that we're going to have on
Thank
Good
you.
Flow for this year to help the audience
Yeah.
see what we're doing. Here's the topic. We wanted to cover this. First Lady sent me some questions or thoughts, and we want to discuss this, but it is her original deal of what she is taking care of and her structure and her strategy. For example, First Lady, tell us about the impact of social media, what it has on self-esteem, dating, relationships, marriages, children. What would you say the challenges are with that?
Well, I think the first thing I want to start off is saying that social media as a whole is not bad, but it is influential to people. It's impactful, and it can have some negative impact and some damaging impact on self-esteem in particular. People tend to look at social media and try to gauge who they are by what they see. We've heard a term that's been thrown out a lot, imposter syndrome, and that's when people aren't comfortable or really haven't identified who they are. So they try to live up to a bar that's not really set by God, first of all, but has been influenced by social media. And so if it's impacting my self-esteem is going to impact my relationships. My esteem is going to impact how I parent. It's going to impact how I work. And so it's important to know that social media is media. And that's what it is. It's given images, and images can be altered. And so it's very important that we really get back to understanding that social media is media. It doesn't mean it's all truth.
Yeah. Yeah, you had talked to me once about it, that it's staged.
Yeah,
It can be a performance.
Yeah.
Tell them what you shared with me on that.
Yeah, and so just even helping clients that I see, in particular working with teenage population, social media, we have to remember, as I stated earlier, is media, but social media is staged. You retake it. I don't like that shot. Let me do that again. And anytime you're doing that, that is a performance. I didn't get it right. Let me retake that. And then you'll also have all the filters and do all of that. And when you start really understanding all of that that's going into social media, hopefully you're understanding that can't be your truth. And that's a topic people say, this is my truth, that's my truth. But they're really basing it on social media and what social media says is true. So I think we're just trying to hopefully, like Good Flow, you use it scriptural based, but you're talking about relevant topics. And social media, there are individuals on social media that do that.
Right.
But what we haven't done a lot, Bishop, we haven't vetted who we're listening to.
Okay, that's good.
We'll just listen to somebody has a lot of likes, but doesn't mean they've been vetted to be sound.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things, because of the sound and the images that come from social media doesn't mean it's all bad,
Right, no.
all evil.
Right.
But we have to be strong and discerning what to use, what not to use, what to see, what not to see. What do you think about this? There are people who claim I don't watch social media. I'm not on it, and that doesn't describe their work environment.
Right.
50 people in a room, maybe, or on an office floor, and over half of them watch social media. And if they're playing the imposter or a different character, that still's filtered
Yes.
into their life because they don't know who's living a life of
Absolutely.
comparison. They don't
Absolutely.
know who's living a
Absolutely.
life of competition. What do you say to them and that group?
Well, you said it, and I'll use myself as a transparent example. I don't watch the news a lot, very seldom, just because I'll be trying to protect my mind of all the stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not on social media. I don't post a lot, but I still do peep and look at. And so being that person that used to be able to say, well, I'm not on social media or I don't watch the news, but I'm still influenced and impacted by different circles, because my circles, whether they're work circles, family circles, church circles, the people I'm around are still watching that. So my conversations are still ultimately impacted by social media. So we can't just say because I don't do it, I'm not influenced by it.
Listen, I agree with you, Dr. Pam, First Lady. I agree with you on that, because I think the fascinating piece for me is many of us who don't embrace social media need to in a way, but there needs to be some balance or counterbalance to it.
I agree.
I think the fascinating thing is who's controlling the narrative, who's influencing who with it. Let me ask this next question, because of what's happening in the country, what's happening in our lives. What do you think of the mental health and the trauma being released through people expressing how they feel and using the social media as an outlet?
Yeah. Now, Bishop, you see, I had to take a deep breath on that one. And the reason why is in my field and my colleagues, we often have a discussion that sometimes people are confusing their release of their emotions and their trauma on social media as therapy. That is, and it may be helpful to release, but you've also exposed yourself to people that aren't really trained or may not have your best intent. And so there's a difference in being with a person that has experienced trauma, that's experienced any kind of pain, to be in an environment. And I'm not saying everybody has to go to therapy, but they need to be in a safe place and a safe space, that if they're released something, it is in a place or with people who will protect it, who will comfort, provide coverage, and they can also guide. When you're out on social media, you have just released some of your most vulnerable, painful things to an audience, to people who may not always have your well intent, and who can also take that and use it against you. And that is, social media is not therapy, and that's just the bottom line. It's an outlet, but it's not therapy.
I think that's the challenge we face. The influencers, the opinion shapers. And then sometimes people feel like the cry for help is best to do it that way, and you don't know who else it's affecting. I think we have to be honest with our own trauma that we are dealing with. I also believe that from a social media standpoint, we ought to look at it from a way even Joshua, that his brothers did what they did to him. Not Joshua, Joseph. That even though his brothers did what they did to him, it's invisible in the text if he faced trauma. But at the end, he said, "You meant it for evil."
Oh, he faced some trauma,
and
Bishop.
God turned it to
You put in
good.
the pit, you face some
put in the
trauma.
pit, you put in the prison.
Yeah.
Something
You in some
that
trauma.
perfected
Yes,
you, but he
yes,
said,
yes.
I'm in the hands of God.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think we need to stay focused, start baby steps to get
Yeah.
back close with God and get close with people.
Yeah.
And so that's what we wanted to let people know,
Yeah.
that it's a good flow. I'm praying and we're praying for families and people struggling with all types of conditions.
Yeah.
Please trust God, be right by others, and God knows all of our situations, and He's a healer. He's a deliverer. Anything you want to say to him in closing?
Yeah, the last thing I think I would like to say, again, just closing out on that trauma, because we know it's real, and just in our where we are in the seasons of things that are happening politically and what we're hearing about mass shootings, people have been impacted by past traumas and recent traumas, but trauma can impact how you hear God. And that's another important reason that it's important that we face and be real about our trauma and get help with our trauma and not just release the trauma. You said something earlier that, people are trying to grow without being healthy, and people are trying to just release and not getting healed. And there's a difference, and that will impact how you hear God, and it will impact how you see yourself and others. So it's real, but we got to address being healed. That's what I would say.
In closing, for sure, be careful getting in a relationship or relationships, jobs, marriage, or children, or business. And you're so busy rushing for it to grow that you don't take care of health, mind, body, and soul. If you do that, God will bless you. Good flow. Take care. We love you.
Thank you, Bishop.